topics and opinions expressed on the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4WN Radio.
This is Beyond Confidence with your host, Divya Parekh. Do you want to live a more fulfilling life? Do you want to live your legacy and achieve your personal, professional, and financial goals? Well, coming up on Divya Parekh's Beyond Confidence, you will hear real stories of leaders, entrepreneurs, and achievers who have stepped into discomfort, shattered their status quo, and are living the life they want. You will learn how relationships are the key to achieving your aspirations and financial goals. Moving your career or business forward does not have to happen at the expense of your personal or family life, or vice versa. Learn more at www.divyaparekh.com, and you can connect with Divya at contact@divyaparekh.com. This is Beyond Confidence, and now here's your host, Divya Parekh.
Good morning, listeners. It's great to be here because I get to be with y'all. And I hope you're keeping that kindness circle going because kindness matters. And one small kind act can work wonders for somebody else in their busy day or in their hectic life. So just a very quick note, one of our audience did send us a beautiful story and I want to give her a shout out. And her name is Yvette. And what she shared was that she shares a good funny thing or a inspirational with a few of her friends who are down. And one of her friends, when they met each other, like on a weekend, told her it was just the thing I needed to hear. So you never know how that's going to impact people. And also for those of you who have got our books, big thank you. And for those who have not, do get some of our books because it's a three-way thing. It will help you. It will help us spread the message. And part of our profits go to Kiva.org will help an entrepreneur. And today we have a very special treat for you. One of good friends and a very special person. We have a guest of WITI who believes in giving. And you know that kindness is very, very dear and near to my heart. So let's bring in our guest. Welcome, David.
Thank you so much, Divya. Great to see you.
Great to see you too. And David, I know you had a great role model in your mom. So I just want to kind of bring that out and share, how did WITI come into existence?
Sure. WITI started in as kind of a result of Criterion Research. That was a company that she had started in '86, and I was more doing sales and retail at the time. She had started working with aerospace companies, Silicon Valley tech companies to really help them improve the way they were connecting with people and other across the U.S. Didn't go too much internationally back then. That had specialized core competencies in different areas of technology. And she had had a big project come up. I helped her out and seemed to really do well in that business. So we were right there, kind of, pre-fax machine, beginning of, I think, just as the PC had come out, and just seeing the grassroots of tech. And in '89, there was data that came out that talked about women being about 50% of the workforce, but still such a small percentage in management and upper management positions. And she felt it really just was mostly was a communication breakdown, because we'd been working with so many amazing women and men in areas that were very open to supporting each other. So that's where WITI was born. Email was just starting, if you could imagine that.
Oh yeah, I still remember how it used to go, AOL.
Exactly. And she thought that was a great opportunity to start building community. So that's when WITI was born.
Mm. And how did your mom influence you?
Um, I, certainly many ways, but I think one was just jumping in and going with her gut and her heart on what was right. And if she could keep, as you said, Divya, at the opening, kindness and integrity, then things would go well. And as
Mm.
long as you're, in the space where you want to solve problems for people and clear things out of their way so that they can get what they want, we'd have a good business.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. And so she definitely influenced you. And how did you take your work and how have you built WITI? And tell us a little bit more about it, what it is, and because I know a lot of people can benefit.
For sure. So, back then she had the idea for WITI. I had just started working with a client who was a company called Borland. It was a very small company up in the Santa Cruz Mountains. And they had, and again, this is right at the beginning of what they called the software wars back then, and the beginning of PC software, and figured out how to support them in their high growth. And my mom and Carolyn had WITI, and it was started as meetings in our living room, or in her living room, and then grew. And it was just amazing to see how fast technology was growing back then. Nothing compared to what we see today, but back then it was fast, right? And the web browser came out in, I think, 93. That's when we had our first meeting at Sun Microsystems, where, we expected maybe 30, 40 people. There was like 300 or 400. The summit in 95. Back then, everybody had to mail in their registration, if you could imagine. We didn't know, a few hundred people sign up, and then it was thousands. So that was good. We're able to kind of, fund it at the beginning with our other company. And then, of course, I worked alongside her, as well as my brother, who had been up at Berkeley and was the first person at CNET when that started. So we kind of all came together to help her, even though it didn't necessarily click in until, I think, many years later, for me anyway, just why it was so important, and just hearing stories and people coming up to me all the time and sharing with me how WITI's really helped transform their lives.
Right. And so in that journey, you have grown yourself quite a bit. So tell us, how that AI, AI is here to revolutionize. You're talking about, PCs, and I remember having this gigantic monitor that I couldn't even kind of lift, it was so heavy. And where do you see the intersection of the workforce and AI?
For sure. I think AI makes us superhumans, right? And I think, as we saw just at WITI, as things started happening very fast, kind of right before ChatGPT was released by OpenAI, which is the first, as you know, the first large language model and generative AI kind of user side technology. We had recently updated the federal glass ceiling report to take a look at the numbers, and it was something we had worked on 25 years earlier with Renee Redwood and her team at the Federal Glass Ceiling Commission, and really just looking at, where the numbers were and the small change that had been made. Right after that, we merged our companies together. So WITI, that previously had stood for Women in Technology International, we changed what the acronym meant to Workforce Innovation, Trust, and Influence. And really, the month after ChatGPT came out, we just started having what we call our AI think tanks, because we just felt it was so important to make sure all of our communities upskilled. and could learn about these tools and contribute to others, right? I love it, WITI, because we'll have people that are keynoting at other companies, or at other conferences and things, just coming in and sharing so we can help elevate the community. So you and I have had many discussions about AI and just all the phenomenal tools, and the tools that come out every day, every week. So it's good. I think it's good just to stay current and use what we have, and such a great opportunity to connect.
Absolutely. So can you share with us and our audience the 3-step framework that you usually use?
For sure. Excuse me. So a few things with AI, I'll say. So as far as if you're talking about give, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So something that Divya and I have had many conversations about, and I really engage with our community, is as you're connecting with people, right, and just building and nurturing your network, things that are just so important, because I think many people don't realize just how small of an industry it is, and people you may have worked with 10 years ago that reported to you may report to later. So, it's all kind of within the same thing. And I think the more we can reach out to people to give value is just important. Connecting with people. We have tools. LinkedIn is a tool I use quite a bit. There's many different ways to use LinkedIn just to stay connected, and much different than, the pre-web, fax machine days, I used to call them. So anyway, right, connect with people, share. When you come up with a new AI tool, give it to people that could really use that. Invest time, right? I think the more we can schedule in and just be intentional about what we're doing and get things on our calendar, I think in this AI world, it's there's just a lot going on, and it's easy to get lost. And I don't know about you, Divya, but it's like when I, maybe I receive a reach out to somebody or an email, it's like, how is that framed? Is this person like doing their homework on me and saying, hey, you're doing this, you might like that, or done their homework? Or is it more of a sales email? Could it even be just AI generated? I don't know, but I think that's blocking people with good intentions, and something we need to just kind of stay on top of. And then validate publicly, right? There's so many things that people can do to really help push their expertise. And I speak to more and more like CISOs, which are chief information security officers, people just coming into AI. I think the important value that they add is their expertise in whatever area they have an expertise in, right? Then if you add that to cybersecurity, if you add that to AI, that's where I think a lot of people underestimate the skills, and they have, because it's just a regular thing to them, right?
Absolutely.
And then engage with empathy. Last week I had this amazing dinner with some of the leaders at WGU, which is Western Governors University, and we had a great talk with Dr. Camille Valentine, who has her PhD in imposter syndrome. Right. So we had a real wide range of people. Everybody was from executives, and CEOs to people just graduating. I think we had a couple students, mid-level career people. And it was just great, because I think when everybody really shared how they were feeling, one of the top people there talked about their imposter syndrome in a lot of cases. So I think there is just a humanity that is part of all of this, that as we now get more intense into our AI world, let's certainly use the tools that'll help us accomplish our goals. And automate our lives so we could be more effective and have more time to spend with our families. But let's also make sure we're bringing our humanity into it and leveraging our creativity and things to help drive the future.
Absolutely. You're definitely, it's spot on, David. And I want to go back to what you said, is that when you're approaching someone, and this is again the pre-machine days, is that you would find out about them, who they are, and then you're intentional in connecting with them. So just few days back, probably I think so, one of the gentlemen, we have known each other for quite some time, and I was getting like at least like a 6-part email. I know there are automation campaigns, they have their own places. But the key is that being intentional about it. So we have known, and I get like a 6-part, and I just archived the conversation. I wasn't going to respond to it because I knew that it was automated. Versus, and this another gentleman, like, our paths had crossed probably 3 or 4 years back. And then he reached out and said that, I'm just connecting, saying hello and checking in. Saw, like, I must have posted something. So he must have gone, spend that time extra and said that, oh, I really enjoyed this part of your post. And looks like you are working in AI right now. So what's new? And that definitely caught my attention. So you're absolutely right about being intentional. So in today's day and age, how can people be intentional to build those relationships?
Many ways. And I think that, first of all, I would just say jump in and learn AI, because there's so many phenomenal things coming out every day. And I do a lot of coaching for people that are, at different points of their career and want to get to the next level. Maybe they got laid off and are looking for the next opportunity. So one of my tips is, let's show them the AI. Let's grab the AI tool that we just learned about, that just came out a few days ago, and use that with your lead-in to the person you may want to connect with. Say, hey, I just learned about this tool. It could add incredible value after we've researched them. Read, take a few minutes to read what the person's writing about, what their interests are. How can you support them? I think it's so important now, especially as, what I'll say is, maybe one of the more negative sides of AI is just what the information overload that comes to many areas, right? Such as if a company posts a job and all of a sudden there's, hundreds of applicants, and some people can just auto apply. Some are just bots going in. Some are fake candidates. So I think it gets very depressing for people looking, where they just feel like, I had one guy the other day say he had applied for 997 jobs, and he got a few interviews, right? And now he's assuming, say there's, maybe 700 companies within that just don't like him and don't want him. And I said, Steve,
it's very disheartening.
Right? And I said, Steve, the person that actually needs you probably had no clue you sent in something, right? So I said, Steve, you know what you could do. You know what problems you can solve. Let's figure out a way to connect with who that person is that would hire you in a meaningful way. Not, oh, I'm looking for a job, can you help me? Or I saw a job, can you help connect me? Because now we're giving them assignments, but let's first go in and give. And I think we've had a lot of success now with that. And I'm happy one of our people just, where it was taking months, but she ended up just getting a great job at Apple and is being relocated from Massachusetts to California. So
fantastic. Congratulations.
So that was one of the more recent ones. I was really excited for her, and I knew she was amazing. But but it's tough, right? People get beaten down, lose confidence, and
it's really, really tough. And as you mentioned that, don't assign people, because so many times what happens is that people treat their connections like, oh yeah, you know what, here, do this for me. It doesn't work that way. Like, just like you're busy, other people are busy. So giving, and one of the key things that I've found, like, as I've coached my people and my clients, and that the key is like staying in touch with your connections throughout the year. And it doesn't have to be 100 messages. It can just be as simple for birthdays, holidays. So that way, when you're connecting with them for something, it doesn't seem very cold. You are, as you mentioned, right, that you may have found a tool, share it with them. So currently, an example like, what you are sharing just a few days back, I'm not sure I was reading Politico or what. There are actually candidates from North Korea who are putting in like real LinkedIn profiles, and they are finding jobs and taking our data and moving it back there. So then I decided, like, okay, if this is the case, what can I do to help people? So what I did was I created a whole AI workflows that helps their resume shine. And like, what it does is like, it will tailor their resume to the job description. So that's one of the things that I've found, is that like, just don't keep on sending, like automating the resumes. Quality does matter. Your thoughts on that, David?
I agree with that. I also think, yes, so that's great. Looking at the companies rather than, I always tell my people, let's have a top 10 companies. We know they hire people like you. You can contribute with it to them. They align with your core values and your purpose. They're right down the street, right? You saw a job description that fits. But sometimes just going in that front door is more like a lottery ticket, because there's just so many people to choose from. The poor recruiters on the inside can't possibly manage all this information. So I think now LinkedIn's a big gift. I used to, back in the early days, I'd have to use like these encyclopedia type books called the Corp Tech directories to then find companies and call people up, or I'd go to conferences where there were speakers or they were talking about the topic. Now I can go to any company and look at most of the employees and see who graduated from the school I graduated to, who used to work at IBM like I did, who used to do this, who used to do that. So then it's really a tactical plan. And if you can narrow it down, to 5 or 10 companies that you're going to add value and help the stock go up or just increase value, it's up to you to get to that person. I always tell people in my class, that the person who needs you, they're missing their kid's softball game right now because you haven't figured out a way to get to them. The whole team is on overload, right? And some people, well, I don't know, and I get it, right? Some people are shy. They don't want to feel like they're imposing on people or something, right? We all play our head games, Divya, right? We have the voice. But if I could just connect in a meaningful way, and that's really, why WITI started to begin with. Now we didn't have all these tools. We just had email then. But it's like, if you have a whole community that's got your back, and that no matter where you are in the world, there's a WITI member out there to support you, I think it just takes off, just a lot of the pressure, the guilt, maybe not get right, or just the self-reflection in a negative way. We have to support everybody to get what they want. And now with all these tools, using effectively is good. Sorry.
Absolutely. And so much more power to it, right? Like, here you are doing things on your own, and you don't have anybody during that time, versus you're part of this community. And as you said, there could be members in different parts of the world, and you could just even kind of sit down and communicate, people, as you said, like, you might have a CISO in your community, or you may have somebody who's in a job, and like, how did they find the job? They have the connections. So it just gives so much more leverage. And it's not just for job application. It can be during career transitions, because so many times I have heard that people leave their jobs and communities because of toxic bosses. So having that community to stand behind you is a huge thing.
Right. And then just while you have your job, right, you have to continue to build and nurture your network.
Mm-hmm.
Or something might happen. You're the greatest, employee since sliced bread. That company gets sold. There's double people, right? So who knows? So I think just, figuring out a way it's just important. And that's, again, with WITI and that, just creating these opportunities. We have, I suggest to the people in my class, look, let's figure out, work with them on companies they're working on. Let's connect with people. Let's bring them on as a speaker. And maybe that's a way to approach somebody. So you could have, build more of that solid relationship. And if everybody's getting a similar message, a lot of times it's me, I, right? Instead of it's so refreshing when somebody's like, oh, Divya, I just saw you speak about this. Hey, I found this tool. You may really like it. I think it might solve the problem. It's like, wow, that person took some time to check out what I'm doing, right?
Yeah. And people, and that's how you build the connections. So whether it's your neighbor, so let's say if you have a new neighbor, oh, I live in a neighborhood that's pretty old. And I still remember to this day, like, so many of my neighbors somebody had brought in a cookie, somebody brought in a pie, and then immediately it broke the barriers. And of course, like, you cannot send pies electronically. But as you mentioned, that if somebody has spoken or has done something, you can even share a resource. It can just be an article that, hey, this might be up your alley, and I saw what you wrote, and this may help your audience, or something like that. And finding ways that brings warmth and personal connection.
For sure. And just, being able to train our own AIs now to really, to understand more about us and what our goals are and how we write and where our values are. That really helps me, think about structures when I want to write an article or a comment or an email. Am I pressing a button and having it sent for me? Absolutely not, right? The human always has to be involved. But that's, I think just a way we can, just like the workflows you talked about, create things that are just very proactive and aligned with our goals.
Absolutely. Right? And you're right. The way I believe is that human has to be at the intersection, because just recently I was working with a client, and we put in some data, and that data had not been cleaned out because the team figured, oh, yeah, I can do it. And what came out was inaccurate data, because what was put in, there were mistakes. Mm-hmm. So AI is only as good as what you feed in. And the key is, as you were talking about the workflows, so even creating workflows or tools in a way that the human beings are checking, because you never know what it is learning. And actually some of the models are coming out where it is self-learning. So as you're doing there, and as you're interacting with it, you are making sure that AI is on track. And that would be the future, the way I see it. And I think so. This year you have co-founded Stone AI, right? Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. Stone AI is a company. Our first industry is the entertainment industry. My partner, Evan B. Stone, is just such a genius filmmaker, cinematographer. He's been doing that for 30 plus years. He's somebody that jumped into AI very quick, very early when it came out, because he saw the industry changing. he does things like directs things like Shark Week and Expedition Unknown. So it's exciting getting to know him and working with him. And what we do is really helping the entertainment industry take the next step into AI to amplify the vision of the directors and producers of shows. We have something where we're able to kind of build on top of the IP that's owned by the studio, and really just expand their vision, give them camera angles they may never have thought of, create other scenes that's pulling from their content. And we do this all in a secure, auditable way where we could show full chain of custody from what they shot and own to things we produce. And Evan, with his cinematographer background, is just, it's unreal, some of the things that he creates. I don't think there's any projects now I could talk about because a lot of this just happened, but very exciting. You'll see some things soon, and I'll certainly send you personally some links, Debbie, as soon as we have a few things we can show publicly.
So that's very, very exciting. And what made you kind of step into it?
Evan, I got to know very well through both community at WITI. He's been part of WITI. He's been part of Metal, which is the men's community, how I met Aaron. And just really became friends. And he's been to many of my AI think tanks we have every week. And then one day he's like, hey, I got to show you what I created. And it's getting out of control. He's very more on the creative side. I need a partner that just understands the business side and can work with companies. And then it happened. I had this security solution for us as well. One of our members, that's been a WITI member for over 20 years, had just released. So it's almost just like the stars all aligned, and we pulled things together. And then he's like, "Do you want to jump into this?" He's like, let's start a company." I said, "All right, let's do it."
Nice.
I still run WITI, and still will be there and grow the community. And I'm excited about Stone AI because I know that the people in entertainment are hurting. There's a lot of fear.
Yeah.
But just like them in every other industry, we just have to help upskill everybody with AI, and then their natural human creativity plus AI will turn into the new jobs or whatever it is.
Absolutely. So here's the thing, a lot of people keep on thinking about that. I want to start my own company while I'm working. What advice would you give them? What are some of the things that they need to think about before starting a company, both from the mindset as well as strategy and technical perspective?
Have a plan. Figure out, what they want. And if they could really look out a year or 2 or 3, that's always helpful. And just making sure you're solving a real problem, not creating a technology looking for a problem, which a lot of the very creative tech people have done for many decades, right? And sometimes there's a problem that's solved, right? Or, somebody like Steve Jobs who, envisioned things like the iPod and other things when we would have thought, what? The record or the tape we listened to? So that I would say build and have your community, right? Is another reason you need your community to tap into. You need some advice on raising money or technology or how, a go-to-market plan. All of this is here for you, right? But it's really, like you said, checking in, connecting, giving, being there to support the community. It all comes back.
It all comes back to relationships. And as you mentioned that, that whether you're looking for the capital or you're seeking to connect with the investors or venture capitalists or whatever it is, or just looking for a year to have somebody as a sounding board or having that minimum viable product, just kind of running that pilot program and all that. And maybe sometimes if you have a community, you can just rely on people and say that, hey, listen, like, before I bring it to the market, here's something that I have brought into existence. Can you be my first beta users? So there is so much strength, like, whereas you're doing the same for somebody else, building that community and growing those relationships. So David, what's next for WITI?
Next for WITI, as we continue to evolve, you'll see a lot more programs, AI, well-being, and secure, and then in cybersecurity, we see so much growth. So really creating more programs to support our members, being able to get expertise in those areas, bringing the experts from the industry together so that we can help with relationships for those. And the well-being, as I mentioned, right? It's, you want to take time to breathe, meditate, clear your heads and thoughts, even though, now it's, I was telling somebody the other day, if I take 15 minutes off now, that's like I took an hour off, because I can get done in 15 minutes. What used to take an hour, right?
Right.
But I schedule in, my breathing, meditation, even if it's for 10 or 15 minutes, right? Just, I think, clearing your mind. We have some great sessions around yoga nidra meditation and all sorts of things. And then just new AI tools. I do 2 AI shows on YouTube. We have at least three live events every week on Zoom. And then we have get-togethers, in person, different parts of the world. And over the summer, I'll be speaking at this AI4 conference. Is that on your radar, Divya? You're coming to that? It's in Vegas, August 11th through the 13th. They just confirmed Fei Li, who I'm so excited about.
Oh, yeah, no, definitely. No, I have already some other plans. So,
well, you don't want to go to Vegas in mid-August, Divya?
In that heat, Vegas is hot.
It is going to be hot. But the things we do to, continue to build relationships and help connect people, right? It's so important. That with AI, the AI4 people do an amazing job. It's kind of a new company, or they came out from other industries. I think they had been more real estate, but they had 8,000 people at last year's conference. This will be the second one, so I'm excited.
Very cool. Well, I'm sure that will be amazing. And as we kind of wrap up the show, any advice for our listeners?
For sure. Give, and I credit you, Divya, because you helped me with this and came up with a great acronym, right? So I think if we're always thinking in terms of giving value, investing time, validate publicly, build yourself up as an expert in areas, and acknowledge the people in your community support, and just engage with empathy, right? If there's nothing else we learned during the pandemic, as we went into people's lives, everybody has something going on, right? So if you're just listening through love, and that person's there to support you, right? Sometimes, what's that person trying to get over on me, or this or that? Open up and just listen for the gold. Then I think we make life a lot easier for ourselves as humans,
Absolutely. So, no, fantastic. So thank you for joining us, David. And sounds like you are completely a role model for the giving and helping others out. So thank you for joining us. And listeners, you are the part of our show, and you are the soul of our show. So reach out to us. Let us know, how can we help you live the life you deserve and help you achieve your goals, and anything we can do to support you. And thank you, Juan, for making the show technically possible. And be well and take care. See you all next time.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you for being part of Beyond Confidence with your host, Divya Parekh. We hope you have learned more about how to start living the life you want. Each week on Beyond Confidence, you hear stories of real people who've experienced growth by overcoming their fears and building meaningful relationships. During Beyond Confidence, Divya Parekh shares what happened to her when she stepped out of her comfort zone to work directly with people across the globe. She not only coaches people how to form heart connections, but also transform relationships to mutually beneficial partnerships as they strive to live the life they want. If you are ready to live the life you want and leverage your strengths, learn more at www.divyaparekh.com. And you can connect with Divya at contact@divyaparekh.com. We look forward to you joining us next week.